You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Next year, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
I want smoke.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? It's the second show today. Air horns up for us again. I mean, come on. For me. Solo Dolo. Twice in one day. Yeah, fuck you, Rob and Gary and Foo, for not joining me. Yeah. I'm not sad and lonely at all. It's okay. I miss you guys. Join me. Please, honestly. Especially Foo. Where's Foo at? You know? In the long run of MCR hosts. Where the hell's Foo? But digressing. Let's get to some MMA and UFC topics because we do have a lot to get to. Sorry I didn't do a show earlier this week. I kept putting it off for just a variety of reasons, but I'm doing it now. I'm going to be covering the UFC 251 pay-per-view numbers because I haven't had time to really dive into those numbers and why I think they're so high. We haven't discussed the Calvin Kattar, Danny Ives card, or the Davidson Figueiredo and Joe Benavidez card. We haven't covered those fights either. And obviously, I want to quickly preview the Darren Till Robert Whittaker fight and also bring up Israel Adesanya's next fight and when it's going to be. So a few stuff to get to, not a lot, but there's some major stuff I do want to address and to talk about on today's show. And again, I'll be back on tonight. So after the fights tonight, I'll be back on with a reaction show for Darren Till and Robert Whittaker and that whole card. I might do a reaction show to the Joe Joyce fight if Rob wants to jump on, but Rob would have to want to jump on for that one. I'm not going to do 4 shows in one day. That'd be too much. That'd be egregious, guys. You know, come on. That'd be greedy, right? But let's get to the big news that came out last week, which was the news about UFC 251's pay-per-view buy rate being so astronomically high. Wow. Mike Coppinger and Kevin Iole are reporting that it's 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer and MMAfighting.com said it's near around 875,000. No matter what, if it's in that range, it is a massive, massive event. There's no way to look at it other than a massive event. It's 1.3 million. It's one of the biggest UFC pay-per-views of all time. So huge kudos to, both main eventers. I think the top 3 title fights, you can even include maybe Paige Van Zandt and Thug Rose in that mix. I think they add some star quality to this card. This card had a lot going for it in terms of just depth and quality and star value, honestly. Jorge Masvidal has turned into a legit star. I think even Kamaru Usman has turned into a little bit of a star himself through that Colby Covington fight, which was a fight of the year contender. And low-key a cultural moment for combat sports and sports entertainment, period, for obviously the politics that both guys represented in that fight. In terms of my opinion on why we got such a high pay-per-view number for this, it's a combination of factors here, and I don't know which one is the primary factor, even if there is a primary factor here. It may just be all these things with, as minor factors that have accumulated to produce a massive event. Obviously, like I just stated, Jorge Masvidal has turned into a star. In the last year and a half, he has turned into one of the biggest draws within the UFC and in combat sports, period. So his addition to the card on late notice obviously added a ton of mainstream appeal to this event. Kamaru Usman, like I said, I think has been trending in the right direction as a star, as a draw as well. I don't think that people quite understand how big of a fight that Colby Covington was, even though maybe the pay-per-view buy rate or the attention that it got specifically was massive. That fight trended. That fight is still resonating in our minds as a sporting culture. Like, I still see photos of Colby Covington with his face broken all the time, and not from MMA fans. That's a huge indicator of something. It's similar in a way, not completely, to like a Deontay Wilder till this day moment. Where that was a transcendent moment for Deontay Wilder, where I think people that didn't know boxing, didn't watch him fight, saw that clip, saw that GIF, saw that photo, whatever it was, on social media, and they became aware of it in some fashion. Similar, I think people saw that knockout of Colby Covington and knew about the implications, or at least they were told about the implications of that fight from a political perspective, and Kamaru Usman is trending that way. And then obviously, look, I don't think it's really a shock now to say this, that there is this sort of slight pandemic boost that we are seeing. If a card has big names, has some depth to it, it's going to oversell because it's the only thing in town. Now, going forward, that's maybe not going to be a factor because now we have MLB back, we have women's NBA back. I think NBA is coming back either this week or next week. Like, everything seems to be coming back. NFL is coming back, I think in just a few weeks or next month, right? Which is next week, anyways. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see if that boost is a real factor moving forward. But regardless, this event wasn't in that time period. It was in a time period where it was the only thing in town in terms of sports and entertainment. There's no movies to go to in theaters. There's no sports to watch. It was something to watch and to be entertained by. And again, the combining factor of Masvidal being attached, Usman, I think, trending in the right direction, made this card really, really big. And it's not surprising it got a high number. It is surprising it got this high of a number. The fight guy saying Usman is boring. No one is going to buy pay-per-view because Usman only with Colby. I mean, that's just not true. There's been tons of boring fighters that have been stars. So that's just not, that's ahistorical. It's just not true. John Jones has had a boring run of fights. GSP had a boring run of fights. You can almost name any top fighter. Randy Couture had boring fights. He was a star. Floyd Mayweather had a run of boring fights. He was a star. Like, people have boring fights, and you can still be a star. Star power and entertainment within the ring or in the cage can be connected, but they don't have to be connected. Right? I think that's pretty obvious. Like, look at Ryan Garcia, for example. Right? Like, a guy that doesn't really have in-ring ability yet, but his star power is massive. I mean, that's without a doubt. Moving on, unless the fight guy is going to say some more stupid shit in the chat. The fight guy saying, don't compare John Jones and GSP with Usman, please. Bro, I mean, do you remember his fights? Like, do you remember John Jones versus Rashad Evans? Yeah, John Jones had really exciting fights. So did GSP. And so does Usman. Does he have boring fights? Absolutely. Is his style more leaning towards a non-violent side? Not necessarily, because his output on the ground is spectacular. But in terms of a striking fan perspective, yeah, he's not much of a striker, but neither is John Jones, and neither was GSP in their title reigns. I mean, John Jones' Anthony Smith fight, was that a fight of the year contender? John Jones versus Thiago Santos, was that fight of the year contender? Let's just be honest here. GSP, I was around during GSP's run. So, I don't know if you were, but he literally was criticized for years for being a guy that was going to lay and prey on you. Again, I'm not saying Usman is the GOAT. I'm just saying in terms of you if you're boring, you can't be a star. No, I mean, there's been tons of stars that have had boring fights. Floyd Mayweather is one of the best fighters of all time. He's a boring fighter in most people's minds. You talk to your friends that just casually watch combat sports here and there, watch 1 or 2 fights a year, they're going to say that Floyd Mayweather is probably boring. Like, that's just how it works. But he's still a star. This is not rocket science, I would say. Anyways, moving on. I'm not going to review that card, obviously, because I already reviewed it with Matthew Wells and Pat Auger. So go check out that video. But let's talk about some of the other Fight Island events that have happened. UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Ainge. I always forget how to pronounce his name. Calvin Kattar, I mean, he is legit really, really fantastic. I thought this fight didn't make a lot of sense. I thought it was a little bit of a step backwards, to be honest, for him. And that kind of showed. He dominated this fight. Calvin Kattar lit him up in every facet of the game. And Calvin Kattar continues to have some of the best striking and boxing in MMA. So I'm really excited to see what happens with this featherweight division. You know, we have Volkanovski beating Holloway in the rematch. So are we going to get Volkanovski versus Korean Zombie, Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, Volkanovski versus Calvin Kattar, or is Holloway going to get a trilogy fight? I'm curious about what happens with that top 6 or so in the division, because they can go almost any direction, right? Like if we get Calvin Kattar versus Korean Zombie and Yair Rodriguez gets the call up for Volkanovski, I'm not mad. I love that. If Korean Zombie gets the call up against Volkanovski and we get Yair Rodriguez versus Calvin Kattar, I love that too. If Calvin Kattar gets the call against Volkanovski, and you see how it goes, I love all these matchups. So I'm not opposed to where Kattar goes next. I think he goes to a big fight next, right? He is just really, really good. I'm going to make a comparison, maybe because it's just fresh on the mind, and I see a lot of guys that are both MMA fans and boxing fans. He reminds me a lot in terms of the way he throws his right hand, the mechanics of it, of a Vergil Ortiz, who, it's just so pinpoint accurate, it's violent, it's fast. It's always just tucked, ready to, to be shot, and it's always there. It's always ready to go. I like Kattar a lot. I'm excited to see, again, the next fight for him, because whatever it is, it's going to be a fight of the year contender, right? Like Kattar against Zombie or Rodriguez or Volkanovski or even Holloway. How's that not a fight of the year contender? It's just going to be insane. Shout out to, I'm not going to mention every fight on this card, obviously, but shout out to Jimmy Rivera against Cody Stamann. I thought Jimmy Rivera looked fantastic. And speaking of good boxing, good striking, I thought his ability to slip off the center line and fire back and be the aggressor was good stuff. I think we're seeing a true evolution of boxing technique in MMA in the last couple years or so, and it's continuing to evolve, and I love that. But Jimmy Rivera looked fantastic in this fight. I thought, as a guy that's been a little bit up and down lately, he needed to look good against a guy like Cody Stamann, and he did. That's all I'm going to really talk about for that card. Moving on, the Figueiredo-Benavidez rematch. I mean, what do we say here? First off, this fight was always going to end this way, in my opinion. Joseph Benavidez is on his way out. And I think, technically speaking, he has not evolved like the rest of the sport has. And Figueiredo is truly like a Tasmanian devil. That guy is going to just be a tornado of violence and destruction wherever he goes. So I was always thinking this was going to end very poorly for Benavidez. And, man, he got beat up and choked out. It was bad. It was one-sided. And I'm not shocked. That's what I kind of predicted, but I didn't expect it to be that fucking violent. Oh, my God. Figueiredo is so good. I'm so mad we don't have Henry Cejudo, Horiguchi, and Demetrius Johnson in the UFC flyweight division right now to fight Figueiredo. Those will all be the fights that I would want next, would be those 3 names, honestly speaking. And none of those fights are happening next, right? Henry Cejudo is not coming out of retirement to fight Figueiredo. It's not happening. I highly, highly doubt it. Just like he's not coming out of retirement to fight Peter Yan. Why? There's no name value. They're violent, devastating fighters. I'm good. I can just chill here for a bit. Wait till something more interesting comes my way and a bigger check comes my way. But damn, I mean, Figueiredo versus like Brandon Moreno next, like that would be the fight I would do, and that would be a fun fight. But damn, Figueiredo's so good. I've always been a fan of him. Jack Hermanson, just, I mean, what do you call this fight with Kelvin Gastelum? I mean, he'll hook him, what, like a minute? It was like a minute in 16 seconds or 18 seconds. It was weird. I have no thoughts about this. And that's not to discredit Jack Hermanson. I think Jack Hermanson's really, really fucking good. But when a fight ends this fast, there's so little I can go off of. Plus, both guys are really good. So it's not like this is truly an indictment on Kelvin Gastelum. He just made a mistake, got caught, and he made a really dumb mistake. I forget like exactly the setup he did, but it was poor. It was just really, really poor. Mark Dacassi lost. That was sad. I've always been a Mark Dacassi fan. He lost. Ariane Lipsky won via like devastating fashion with a knee bar. That was awesome to see. Askarov and Alexandra Pentejo, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. That was a fun fight. I'll be honest. For people that maybe didn't watch this card, that fight was legit fun and had some divisional relevance at flyweight. So go watch that one. And now let's talk about briefly the Bellator card last night, because that happened last night on DAZN. Sergio Pettis defeated Ricky Bandejas. That's the only thing I'm going to mention, that he beat Ricky Bandejas, and he looked really good doing it. That's about all I'm going to mention on that. Now let's get to the Whittaker Darren Till card, which is tonight in Fight Island. You know, I did a podcast last night or the night before. I forget what podcast it was for. To be honest, it was with a guy I never talked to before, but it was nice, so I thought I'd do his podcast. Forget the name of it, but whenever I do remember it, I'll send a link to the YouTube community page, because I think I explained this fight perfectly on that show. I'm going to try to just replicate it here. Whittaker is one of those guys where you look at him and maybe you don't see greatness per se. And I've made this metaphor or comparison before to like the video game rating, right? Like he's an 88 out of 100 in everything. There's nothing that he is particularly bad with, right? He is always talented. He's a very talented boxer, talented grappler. He's always really good. He's a B+ in everything. 88 out of 100. Darren Till, it has like a 92 or 93 left straight. That's about it. I don't think anything else he does is better than Whittaker. So maybe that left straight is the thing that changes this fight, the thing that ends this fight early, because if this fight does end in the first round or relatively very early, I think that's because Darren Till is going to catch Whittaker with the left hand and put him out. But if you're looking at this from an analytical perspective, like Till doesn't have better lateral movement. He doesn't have better defense. Till's defense is now just evolving to ducking undershots and clinching. Like level change. Like that's finally what his defense is evolving from. His arms out here stretched far away from him. And it's not that Darren Till isn't talented. It's just that I don't think he's really been properly trained, and he's never properly improved on his game, to be honest. Like what he does, he's really good at. Like again, he's a 94, 93 out of 100 with that left straight, man. That left straight's amazing. But here's the thing. Whittaker has faster hands. Whittaker's the better boxer. Whittaker's jab is better, even though Till has a good jab. Whittaker's lateral movement's better. His defense is far more fundamental and technically sound. He's the better grappler. You know, like Whittaker should win this fight, and he probably is going to win this fight within the distance, if I have to pick. I think he finishes Darren Till within the third or fourth round. I think he's going to be too much for him. I'll be honest. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised tonight when Bobby Knuckles is going to be throwing the faster hands, and not just the faster hands, but like the exponentially faster hands than Darren Till. Darren Till's going to be bobbing and, up and down his toes, arms all wide, and Whittaker's going to be changing his stances, feinting, moving off the center line constantly, and jabbing and setting up shots, and power combinations. And they're going to come in with velocity and heat and come from angles that Till is not ready for because his stance is not, and his overall defensive ability is not ready for that. I think Bobby Knuckles gets him out of there and knocks him out within 3 rounds. If I have to really narrow it down, I think round 3, we see Whittaker knock out Darren Till. First round's going to be close and competitive. I think maybe Darren Till wins it. Maybe even hurts Whittaker to a degree. But Whittaker's going to find his groove, find his rhythm, find the sort of the timing and read the patterns of Till's movement. He's going to get him out of there. I think that I'm almost like 90% sure that happens. Because again, if you only have that 93, 94 of 100 fastball, right, like that left straight down the pipe, that's all you have. It's a good thing to have, but it's not a complete game. And I will say this, Till is improving. So I will give him that. In his last fight against Kelvin Gastelum, we saw marked improvements in his defense and his offensive arsenal. But is it enough to beat Whittaker? I don't think so. Like if that Darren Till shows up here, I don't think he beats Whittaker at all. I think gets knocked out. Co-main event, Shogun Rua fighting Lonog for the 3rd time for no reason. Both guys should be retired, sipping mojitos on a beach. This fight should not be happening. If you look at who Lonog has beaten the last decade, it's like Jason Brills and Tito Ortiz and Rashad Evans and like Sam Alvey. Like that's it. And Shogun's not much better. So no, I'm good off of that. I am interested in the Alexander Gustafsson move to heavyweight. He's 240 pounds, fighting Fabricio Verdum. Verdum is a guy at like 40-plus years old. So I am curious to see what either guy has left in the tank here, especially Gustafsson at heavyweight. So just curious about that. Carlos Esparza against Marina Rodriguez. That should be a good scrap. Though I think Esparza should win that one relatively dominant fashion. Oliveira versus Sabata. That should be a fun little scrap as well. And Khamzat Chimaev versus Rise McKee. That should be a good fight too. Actually, like Nicholas Dalby versus Jesse Ronson. That's kind of a good fight too. Francisco Trinaldo's on the card. I like seeing Francisco Trinaldo. Underrated card here tonight, guys. Now, last little topic, and then we're going to head out of here because we do have the Joe Joyce fight happening, and we do have fights later tonight, so I'm going to be busy watching them. But I'll be back later tonight, guys. So late tonight, expect a reaction show to the fights. But Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Borrachina Costa, title fight set September 19th at UFC 253, sources say, from Air Hawani. I love this fight. I know it's not official yet, but I think it will be, and I cannot wait for it. I'm going to save my prediction and analysis of it from like an X's and O's perspective until we get a little bit closer. But I'm excited. This is arguably the best fight in combat sports this year. Right here. Like you can make an argument this is it. Especially if like Loma Lopez doesn't get announced, if Fury Wilder 3 doesn't get announced, if Canelo doesn't fight. This is easily the best fight of the year. So I am hoping to God this gets announced and we get this just in a couple weeks. Like this is September 19th and we have a week till, not a couple weeks, sorry, like a month and a half. But it's soon. Like it's relatively very soon. So I'm pumped. Guys, that's going to be it for today's show. Like I said, I'll be back later tonight. Stay safe out there. If you're drinking, partying it up, watching the fights, be responsible. Don't drink and drive. What else? What other PSA should I say? Fuck the police. Fuck 12. ACAB. We should abolish capitalism. ICE. Police. The military, like while we're at it too. That'd be awesome. What else? And all imperialist wars. What else is off the top of my head? Reparations for minorities, obviously. I think. Oh, free Palestine as well. What else can I do to demonetize this show? Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Joe Biden. Yeah, and read some good Marxist literature, guys. Okay, I'm reading the Socialist Manifesto right now. So go read. Go do some reading. It's good for you. Have a great day, great evening. Be back later tonight. Peace.
I want smoke.